Good morning and welcome to Toronto Police Headquarters. Today I would like to introduce Inspector Joe Matthews of the Organized Crime Enforcement Integrated Gun and Gang Task Force. He will be providing media with a brief update on an ongoing investigation. Inspector.
Thank you, Jen. Good morning. In late 2018, early 2019, members of the Integrated Gun and Gang Task Force commenced an investigation into the distribution of controlled substances and possession of firearms in the GTA. On Sunday, February 24, 2019, Hewan Wilson was arrested in his motor vehicle, a 2018 Toyota Highlander. Subsequent to the arrest, officers executed a search warrant in the vehicle and located a quantity of heroin and firearms. A second search warrant was also executed at his residence at 2145 Shirobie Road, Unit 31 in Mississauga. That search located 12 other firearms, so you can see them all displayed before you. In total, 7 handguns, 3 shotguns, and 6 rifles were seized, as well as 4 kilos of heroin. Street value approximately $400,000. Approximately 1/2 ounce of cocaine, proceeds of crime, and 2 overcapacity magazines. The accused, Hewan Wilson, with birth of 1968, September 16th of Mississauga, was charged with 100 firearm and drug-related offenses, and he'll be appearing for a show cause hearing tomorrow morning at Old City Hall. As you can see the guns before you, of the guns that were seized, 7 of them were loaded, including the 2 handguns that were seized in the vehicle at the time of the arrest on Mr. Wilson. 7 total handguns. The charges are careless storage times 29, which is firearms and ammunition. Possession of weapon obtained by crime is 17 charges, which is the 16 firearms and prohibited magazines. Possession of firearm times 16. Unauthorized possession of firearm times 16. Possession of loaded firearm times 7. Possession of firearm tampering times 4. Unauthorized possession in a motor vehicle times 4. Possession of prohibited device or ammunition times 2. Possession of property obtained by crime times 2. Possession for the purpose of trafficking weapons, 1 count, and 2 counts of possession for the purpose of trafficking heroin. And when I indicate $400,000 for the heroin, that's at a bulk level. That is at a multi-kilo level. So it's quite obvious the amount of heroin. This is not a street-level dealer. And I'll take any questions that you may have.
How long have you been tracing this guy? How did you get him?
It was a short-lived investigation. Generally, this was the investigation was conducted by our street teams, of which Detective Sergeant Steinwall and Detective Sergeant Harris are in charge. The street teams generally run investigations anywhere from a week to a couple of months. This was on the shorter term.
Do you believe this man acted alone? Or part of a larger organization?
We do have an ongoing investigation trying to determine who he may have been associated with, but at this time we do not have any co-accused.
So you haven't linked it to organized crime yet?
Well, we haven't linked it, Steve, but I think the reality of it is when you have this number of firearms, there is some linkage somewhere to organized crime, but at this point we don't have that linkage.
Do you think you've dismantled, disrupted? How big of a dent do you think you put into? And congratulations, by the way, this is a great seizure. So
thanks. It's very difficult to know what kind of a dent we had. If we do learn that Mr. Wilson was back-ending some kind of organized crime group and he may have been the holder of some firearms, we may have some impact there, but at this time it's very difficult.
Where are these guns from? Where do you get guns like this?
We're still in the process of tracing the firearms, so it would kind of be irresponsible for me to mention where they're from at this point, but we could have further information in the future for you if you wish.
So at this point you don't know where any of these
I don't have the report. Traditionally, we have seen a lot of our long guns are local and a lot of our handguns are imported from the United States, but as far as these firearms go, we don't have that at this point.
Inspector, somebody fell with this amount of narcotics on them, clearly trusted by somebody to carry that from A to B. Would you agree with that? Like, you just don't show up and purchase that amount of heroin on your own.
Well, yeah. It's a difficult question to answer, to be honest with you. I have worked in the drug squad, And when you do have multi-kilo dealers, like it's possible that Mr. Wilson was going to be dropping half keys or 9-packs off to other drug dealers. So our investigation is still somewhat infant, although it has been 2 weeks. We're still trying to determine exactly who his associates are.
Do you believe that Mr. Wilson has been operating for a long time, given his age? I mean, this isn't a young man.
Right. Just by seeing the amount of heroin, as already mentioned, and the number of firearms, I would expect that this is not his first rodeo.
I don't know if the regular person at home kind of understands how much this may happen. If you can paint us a picture as to whether this is a very special case or does this sort of thing happen all the time?
Well, in the Gun and Gang Task Force, we have what's referred to as our street teams. And our street teams are daily going out, conducting search warrants, observations, and trying to seize as many firearms and controlled substances as possible. This is a little bit of an anomaly where the number of firearms and the amount of drugs is very high, but these types of investigations go on multiple times a day. I can assure you of that.
How alarming is it to you that one person was in possession of 16 firearms, and a lot of them long guns?
It's quite concerning. However, one firearm is more than more than concerning. At the end of the day, this person wouldn't be able to operate the 16 firearms. So one at any time is very concerning to us as an organization.
Do you believe that he may have had intent to sell these firearms as well, or was he doing that?
That's part of the investigation at this point. There is one charge for possession for the purpose of trafficking firearms, and I won't get into the evidence on that at this point, but I don't have any further information to provide about the trafficking.
Do you live alone at the address?
I'm sorry?
Do you live alone at the address?
No, there were other residents in the address. No children. Don't have the information of who they were. There were no children at the address.
Recently, with a lot of these gun seizures, did he have like trapdoors in his car or anything like that? We've heard about this with drugs being stored, weapons being stored, anything like that.
They were concealed. They weren't in the open. I won't go as far as saying that there was aftermarket built traps. It was just creative ways of concealing the weapons and drugs.
Was that his residence or was
At both.
Oh, okay.
At both.
Can you speak a bit to, I know your squad does an awful lot of difficult work behind the scenes. Nobody sees the work that your officers do until a seizure like this occurs. And the whole of how important that intelligence-led approach is to your type of work. And this car that was stopped, was it stopped at a routine stop, or was it a stop that?
No, this was an investigation that was commenced, and it's an important point that you make about being intelligence-led. And we're definitely looking at collaborating more with the community to get information about these types of people that have drugs and guns in our community, as well as we're going to be starting in April. We're going to be getting out to the communities in a form of a town hall meeting and discussing and educating the community about gang involvement and what they can look for in their students, in their communities, and in their own households. So look forward, as we're coming out in April, to get the information out there to engage more with the community if we could.
You had said that he lived with others. Are any of the other residents in that unit charged with anything? And is it possible that they didn't know that all of this was in the house?
It's possible that they didn't know, absolutely. At this point, they're not charged, but that is still part of the investigation.
Of all the firearms recovered, is there any one in particular that's most concerning to you?
I'll actually step back and take a certain time on.
If you're just talking about firepower, obviously the larger guns are more concerning, but the smaller guns are easily concealed, and that's what we're finding now on the streets. I don't know if you remember Project Patton. The multitude of those small firearms put into hands of dangerous offenders, violent offenders in the city, and that's very concerning as well. Just give it back here.
Sorry, how much ammunition was found in total?
I don't have the totals of the ammunition. It was significant. I can't tell you that. He's known to the police, yes.
For similar offenses?
No.
Are you able to elaborate?
At this point, I'm not going to elaborate on it, but I will tell you that he was known to the police.
It looks like a lot of the firearms, the serial numbers have been ground off. Is this an attempt to hide the origin of the firearm?
That's generally the purpose of it. There are charges in relation to the firearms being removed.
serial numbers.
Yes.
Have they been removed off all of them?
No, I think the charges, let me just refer, four of them? Four of them have been, the serial number either removed or attempted to be removed.
And so if you can explain why that would be done.
Sure, it really slows down the process for our experienced people that can trace these firearms back to their origin and to be able to determine from the point of purchase to the time of crime. It's very important as an investigator to be able to track these firearms.
Any idea on the source region of heroin?
A source for the heroin?
Yeah.
No, not at this point. Those investigations will continue in collaboration with our drug squad to try and determine the source. It is very difficult unless it has a unique chemical makeup to be able to determine if it's part of another batch that we were able to source from a certain location. But it's not that simple. Anything else? Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes today's news conference. Visuals? Yeah. Oh, you do? Okay.